Hey there neighbors, Kevin here with eTrailer, and today we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the Stealth Hitch Trailer Hitch receiver here on our 2023 Hyundai Palisade. If you plan on taking a trip out and want to be able to haul your bike with you, or maybe just some extra gear, maybe you're going out on a hiking trip and you're getting out to the trail, but you just don't have all the space that you need inside of your Palisade, or you just don't want to have anything that's going to be all covered in mud, you want to kind of keep it outside back on that cargo carrier, then Stealth Hitch has a great option for you because they're going to have that trailer hitch so that you can do all those activities, but when you're done with those activities, you can take the trailer hitch receiver right off of the back of your car with just a simple turn of the knob on the right side of it, and then you have a nice factory look with your Palisade. All right, now with the bike rack removed, we're gonna pop in our key to our lock. We'll turn that so the key, the flat side of the key should be facing horizontal, and then on the right side we'll have our control knob. This we're gonna just wanna turn towards the front of the vehicle. Once we do that, you can hear it click, it's gonna pop right out, and then we can easily take our receiver tube out and put it into our car so it's out of the way, and it's gonna be nice and clean. So in those winter months when you might not be using your bike rack or your cargo carrier, you can easily just put this away so you're not having it sit out in the elements and get all corroded. Now when it's time to do that, you'll also have a plug, and you can pop this plug in there, and that's gonna help prevent any water or salt or anything else from the road kicking up and getting inside of the lock block right here. And then that could end up binding up and not allowing you to easily slip in your receiver tube. So make sure that you are popping in that cover when the receiver tube's not in place so you can keep this nice and clean. Now when it's time to actually do it again and put in our receiver tube, it's just gonna be reverse order there. We pop out our plug, make sure that we're in the coupling position with our latch unlocked. Just pop it right in. And then from there, all we have to do is turn our key. We'll press in on that lock, make sure it's clicked in fully. You can put the cap back on it, and you're all good to go. Now, we've been talking about bike racks and cargo carriers a lot for one specific reason. This receiver tube is not capable of towing. If you are wanting to tow a trailer, you will need to pick up Stealth Hitch's towing kit, which is going to come with a ball mount version of this receiver tube that would easily just pop in just the same. And it's also going to come with a wiring kit, so that way you can transfer over your light signals. Now, back onto the topic of bike racks and cargo carriers, there's a couple of measurements that are pretty important when it comes to determining what we're actually going to be able to haul around and utilize within our trailer hitch receiver. What we want to see is a minimum of 12 inches. If we can get more than that, that's even better. We're looking at right around 13.5 inches. Now, I am on gravel, so that might throw that off just a little bit, but that is well above that 12-inch minimum that we like to see. Now with bike racks and with the cargo carriers, you typically are going to have an option for it to actually fold up so that you can get a little bit less length overall for your vehicle and bike rack combo. And for that, what we like to look at is from the center of our hitch pin hole out to the closest point, essentially, that the bike rack or cargo carrier would touch, which would be the outermost part of our fascia here. So with that up, that's going to be this point right here at the back of our fascia, which is coming out to right around 4 inches. So what we'd want to do is look at our shank on our accessory, which I can show you in just a sec. I'm going to grab our bike rack again and tell you, or show you in real life exactly how this would work. All right, so the closest part on our bike rack, once it's in that folded position, is going to be this hook that's going to be actually sitting up on the wheels. That's our closest point. This is pretty much equal with that as well. So going off of where that lines up with our shank compared to the center of our hitch pin hole, we're looking at roughly 6 inches here. So I know that my vehicle has about a 4-inch minimum, and I know that my bike rack has a 6-inch spacing there. So we have a 2-inch gap, which is going to give us more than enough clearance for us to throw our bike rack up on in the folded position, so that way we can get a little bit less length overall. Now, taking a closer look at our receiver tube, it's going to be a 2-inch by 2-inch receiver tube opening, so that's going to fit the majority of accessories that are out there on the market. Now, there are some 1¼ inch accessories, but you can get a reducer sleeve to slot into there without affecting your capacity. Now, the one thing that isn't going to come with this trailer hitch, just like most other ones, is going to be the actual hitch pin clip for it, and with ours, it's going to be a 5/8 hitch pin and clip, and it would slot in just like any other trailer hitch. Now, I typically recommend going with one that's going to be anti-rattle and locking, so that way you don't have to worry about things kind of rattling around and getting damaged, and you don't have to worry about somebody taking off with your accessories. Most of the time though, especially with like a bike rack, you're going to already have that come with it. Our Kuat Sherpa today comes with a locking hitch pin, so that way you can make sure nobody takes off with your bike rack. So I would definitely make sure that you reach out, find out which pin's going to be the best one for you, and make sure it's locking, because you don't want to waste all that money buying that nice, fun accessory and then having someone else take off with it. As far as installation goes, Stealth Hitch is typically one of the companies that is typically more involved, because most of their hitches are for vehicles that are typically in that upper tier of class. And you're usually removing a lot of fascia, you're pulling a ton of parts off. It's a really involved install. They do a really great job with their instructions in most cases, but for us today with the Palisade, it's honestly a super easy hitch to install. They are going to separate it into 3 separate pieces. You'll have your centerpiece, the cross member, and then you'll have your 2 arms that are going to bracket up to the frame rail. So you will have to bolt those all together. So it's just one extra step compared to some of the other hitches on the market. But the big key here is that Stealth Hitch packages their hitches very neatly and very protected. A lot of the other options out there are just going to ship in a plain box after it was pulled off of a pallet. So there's room for dents, scratches, dust, dirt, debris getting kind of all over your hitch in most cases before it even gets to you. With Stealth Hitch, you don't have to worry about that. It's in a nice padded, thick cardboard box, and it's got a bunch of supports inside of that box to help prevent anything from shifting around or scratching or denting anything else that's inside the box. So they really do a really nice job and make sure that that first glance you get at that hitch is going to be nice and shiny and new. Back to the install itself. Definitely something that you could do yourself at home, but if you just don't have the tools to do so, maybe you don't own that torque wrench and you don't have a local auto parts store that's going to rent one out for you for free, then you can definitely use our dealer locator to find a shop near you and get it professionally installed. Now, if you are wanting to do this yourself, then stick around and I'll walk you through the process. To start off our install, we want to open up our rear hatch. We're going to grab a flathead screwdriver and we're going to come and pop out the cap that's covering up our spare tire. We'll then take a 13/16 or a 21mm socket and we can lower our spare tire down. Our next step is going to be lowering our exhaust, but before we do that, we want to make sure we have some support for it. So I'm going to take a cam strap, I'm going to run it over one of our coil springs and then over to the other one as well. Tighten that up just a bit, and we're going to have a couple rubber isolators to remove. First one right here at the rear of the vehicle, and there's going to be one on the right side of our exhaust, up over here, right here, I see it, and one more right back here at our suspension. So before I go and pry on that, I'm going to take some silicone lubricant and we'll just spray that in there and help transition this out. And there's a couple of different tools you can use. I have a tool specifically designed for helping pop off those rubber isolators. You could also just use a pry bar. It just kind of depends on what you really have to pry against. In our case with this one, I'm just going to pry this straight out. Drop that back. Over here, we just got the one prong to deal with. You can get it from inside real easy. And then just our last one right here. So now our exhaust has been lowered and it's being supported by our cam strap. From there we have a cover over on our passenger side that we're going to drop out of the way. Sometimes it doesn't really interfere with the hitch, sometimes it does. I'm just going to go ahead and take it off anyway just to make it easier for us and give us more room so that we can get our wrench in there to torque down our hardware. Now this is going to have 3 push pins, and then it's going to have 2 nuts that we're going to need to take off. On these plastic nuts up top, they'll just keep spinning, so you do need to keep pressure on it as you're loosening that. So kind of hold down on the plastic too as you're pulling that out, and I'll get these popped out and I can tell you exactly what that socket's going to be in just a sec. I'm going to start with the push pins because, like I said, the plastic nuts are going to want to fight you. And for this, you can use a trim panel removal tool. Looks just like one of these guys. I sometimes find the thinner flathead screwdrivers are easier to kind of get that initial pop out. And now for the sockets, you can use either a 9/16 or 14 millimeter to get this off. There we go. And we'll just set this to the side. Now at this point, we want to spray in a little bit of lubricant again, and we're going to take a wire brush and we're going to clean out the weld nuts that are in our frame. So on both sides, both the driver and passenger, you'll see these 2 holes on the bottom of the frame. Just get your spray, spray some in there, grab your brush, and you can kind of run it through and just make sure you got all the threads cleaned out. It makes it a whole lot easier when you go to hold the hitch up and put your hardware in if it's not fighting you the entire time you're trying to thread the bolts in. All right, now we are going to assemble our hitch. As you can see, I already have it laid out how it's supposed to be. We have our center section with our stickers facing outwards. You can see that we have some holes in the bottom of our little mounting flange here, and there's going to be our lock core that's going to go into the center of this. Now for the arms and our bracketry here, this is going to go only one specific way. They've made it so that you've got a slip-on joint for the passenger side, and it's a flat joint right here on the driver's side. Now you do want to make sure that you are orienting these in the correct position. So you can see right here, when I put this up, we have more of the L-shaped bracket that's going to be popping up towards the bottom of the vehicle's frame rail. So we want to make sure that we're doing the same thing over on the other side with our passenger side bracket, which when we slip this in, we should have that L bracket still to where it's going to butt up to the bottom and inner side of our frame rail. So to connect these pieces together, which a lot of the time when you get a trailer hitch, it's usually not in a box, it's packaged here by us, and it doesn't always come out exactly how you want it to. Sometimes those boxes don't always fit the hitch the best. So Stealth did a great job by separating each one of these pieces, but it does add on just one extra step here. But now you know your hitch isn't going to be sticking out of a box and potentially getting damaged. So we're going to take 8 of our 3/8 bolts, and we're going to pop on our flange nut. We're going to put one of these on each one of our mounting holes on both our passenger and driver side brackets. So that'll be 4 per side, or 8 total. Once you have them all assembled, you'll want to then come back with either a 14 millimeter or 9/16 wrench and socket and just snug each one of them down, and then we'll come back and torque them to spec. Next, we're going to take our 4 1/2" by 4 bolts, and these are going to have a flat washer we're going to throw on there too. We're going to slip this in through the frame rail horizontally. Now, on the passenger side, your heat shield's going to be in the way, so what I like to do is I'll put that flat washer all the way at the tip of our bolt, past where the heat shield's going to sit, because it's going to be just kind of sticking out right where my finger is. So it'll be right in the way to where it's also going to want to fight once you get the bolt head closer to it, and you can just kind of hammer that home. It's okay if you dent up the heat shield just a little bit. It's not going to be the end of the world. So we're going to get this in place right now, but like I said, the passenger side is going to be a little bit more difficult. So you'll definitely want to have a second set of hands with you. I've got Aiden here today. He's going to lift up the other side for me, and we'll get this up into place. You just want to kind of keep pushing it until you get it all the way slotted in. Once you got one in on each side, that'll pretty much help hold the hitch up itself. But same thing on the back, heat shield's going to fight you too. So I'm going to Just gonna wiggle that through. Alright, there we go. I used a little punch in my hammer to push it through. You can see the scratch I made on the heat shield there. Now on the other side, I've seen this on a bunch of different Palisades and Tellurides. It's just a little plastic clip that's poking all the way through. If that is in the way, you can just break it off. It's not really holding anything structural or anything like that where you'd have to worry about it. So now on the outside of the frame rail, we're going to have another flat washer and then our lock nut to go with it. And that's going to be for both the passenger and the driver's side. And I'm not going to go super tight just yet. We might have to kind of wiggle this around because the next step is going to be getting our bolts in vertically into the frame, into those weld nuts. And just by looking at it, it looks like we might be pretty tight forward. So I need to kind of push it more towards the rear of the vehicle here to kind of get these holes lined up perfectly. Next, we'll take our 4 M10 bolts and we'll throw on a split lock washer and a flat washer. And then, like I said, these are going to be those 2 vertical bolts per side that go into our weld nuts. Get these started and then we can run them down with our drill. For these, you can use either a 17mm socket or an 11/16. For snugging down those horizontal bolts, it's going to be either a 3/4 or a 19mm socket and wrench. Now we can come back and torque down all of our hardware to spec. Now we're going to add in our lock block here, and that is just going to slip right up into place. We can pop in our bolt. And second one, on the locking side of this, we're going to have a lock nut. We'll run that all the way down. All right, I'm going to be using a 15/16 socket on both the bolt head and on the nut. I'm going to run that down. Now we're going to torque this to spec. Keep in mind that at this point with the torque rating for this, you are going to need to use at minimum a 1/2-inch drive torque wrench. So if you don't have one of those, you can definitely pick one up here at eTrailer, or you can reach out to your local auto parts store. A lot of time they'll have some kind of rent-a-tool program where you can get that tool for free, so that way you're not spending extra money on something you might only use once or twice. All right, I've got it unlocked with our key here. You can see the little plunger where our lock core is kind of sticking out here, right there. So you can see the bar isn't going across on the inside of our block. So we're in the coupling position, so I can easily just slot my receiver tube up into place, and it is locked in. The only thing I have left to do is just remove my key, press in the lock. Now no one can take off with our receiver tube. Now the next thing we're going to want to do is to just kind of trim a little ring out of this portion of our little plastic cover here, because the bolt head on the other side with the nut is just going to be rubbing against that. Now technically you could force it in there still and it'll bend enough to get back in there. Personally, I would just trim it because that just seems to me like something where it would sit there and rub and rattle over time and make a bunch of noise, or kind of break this up over time just from the tension of it pressing on it constantly. So like I said, if you want to, you can trim it. If not, you can force it back up into there and it'll still be okay. But once you get that up into place, the last thing to do is going to be just reinstalling your exhaust. So make sure that you get each one of the 3 rubber isolators back on the exhaust, and then you can remove your cam strap and you'll be all good to take that bike rack or cargo carrier out using your new Stealth Hitch.